Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Business in Calgary podcast powered by Sonic Coaching Partners. We're your hosts, Oliver Basner, and I'm with my business partner here, Tia Calloway. Say hi to everyone, Tia.
Hi.
And we're pretty excited. We've actually got a guest that you're going to really want to hear today. And it's Rich Baker. He's the CEO of Sabre Limited and also was recently awarded through Business in Calgary magazine the 2024 Leader Award. So first of all, congratulations on that, Rich. Must have been
Yeah.
exciting.
Thank you. It was.
Yeah. And we were just talking briefly before we came on air, and at first you weren't even sure it was a real thing, right? It was your EA who sort of
Big
figured
time.
out that the award was real, and then you got a little more excited. So
Big time, yeah.
and hence you're here. So can't wait to talk to you. So just so you know a little bit about that award, the judges said that the characteristics that stood out for the winners were creativity, imagination, and a commitment to the community. Leaders were very committed to making our community stronger, healthier, and more vibrant. So tell us a little bit about Sabre and sort of what contributed, do you think, to you being selected for this award?
I can't say it was creativity. So it must have been our contribution to the community. Ever since we were operating in my basement, for some reason, we've all felt compelled to contribute to charities that mean a lot to us.
Right.
Yeah.
I was operating in my basement. It was my first year of business. We were a new business. It was a startup, obviously. And I got a call from a colleague of mine to donate to see if I was interested in coming to the Raising Spirits event. And I think it was at I can't remember the name of the place. And the purpose of the event was to raise money for children that were dealing with mental health issues.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That was it. And I was a startup company and took them up on it. I went to go check out the event. We weren't making any money at the time, and still felt compelled
Yeah.
to do it. So showed up at the event. It was really neat. It was much smaller at the time, and that was our first donation. And when I got back to the office, my basement, I told my colleague, the project manager who was sitting in the corner of the basement, what I'd done, and he was very moved by it.
Right.
And we started talking to everybody else that worked at the company, and they were all moved by it too.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the reactions from everybody were actually caught me not by surprise, but it wasn't what I don't know whether I expected something. I didn't. But everybody felt good about the fact that we contributed.
That's
And
awesome.
so that's when I realized that our little company could actually make a difference in the community. And it just went up from there. We
That's
just started
fantastic.
getting more involved with different groups, particularly with children, and particularly when it came to mental health causes.
Right.
I think it moved me personally. I know it moved me personally because I have a self-diagnosed social anxiety disorder. Through reading, through studying, through trying to find out
Right,
what was
yeah.
wrong with me,
Yeah.
because I suffered with anxiety and panic attacks, and they
Right.
got worse as I climbed the corporate ladder, which was a very short ladder because I didn't last very long in the corporate world. But it got worse. The panic attacks and the anxiety got worse, and I thought that it was going to go away as I accomplished more in life. And then they became crippling when I started my company in my basement. And I was able to overcome that.
Right.
I was able to overcome that through breath work and meditation. I cured myself. No one listening to this can see me doing the quotations,
Air quotes.
the air quotes, because there's no such thing as curing yourself with that.
Yeah.
However, as I went through that, I realized that I've been suffering with social anxiety and panic attacks my entire life, my childhood life,
Yeah.
and as an early adult. And the anxiety and the panic attacks actually came close to holding me back from even trying to become an electrician.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be.
Not start a business.
It can be debilitating.
Big
It can
time.
literally stop you from achieving following your dreams and achieving things that you want. Right.
Big time, yeah.
Yeah, I read an article on you that you had mentioned that you were working in a bar and you were really not confident in yourself or your abilities before you know, kind of went through this whole path that you're on now. So
100%.
yeah, I don't know. Talk
And-
to us about that. I'm so curious of how you got there and what you did to get yourself there. I think that that's probably something that people struggle with for a long time before they get to that point that they realize it's a self-confidence issue, not a lack of ability.
Big time. I worked at a bar. I was a fun bartender. Everybody thought I was the life of the party. And I struggled with anxiety even back then. But what I didn't realize is I was using beer to cope with it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Now at the time you're thinking, oh, that's just a normal 18, 19, 20-year-old that's,
Yeah.
that's having a good time. But it
Yeah.
turns out I was actually using beer to cope with it. Well, that issue that I was going through was actually holding me back from even daring to quit my bar job and start anything in terms of a career. I
Right.
lasted a month at Mount Royal University. At the time it was called Mount Royal College. I lasted a month. I dropped out in basic studies. And then for some strange reason, when I was 23 years old, I woke up on a Sunday and I found the courage to send out resumes to get a job as an electrician,
Okay.
even though I thought I was not very bright.
Yeah.
I didn't have the confidence. I didn't think I could do it.
Yeah.
And it was anxiety that was holding me back.
Yeah.
It was anxiety that compromised me and made me scared of even trying. And for some strange reason, I tried. Call it divine intervention or whatever you want to call it. But I tried.
Yeah.
And so I started that trade. And I spent 4 years going through the trade program. I fell in love with being an electrician and I won the Dean's Award at SAIT.
Yeah.
So it turned out I wasn't incompetent, or it turns out that I was capable and I could
Yeah.
do something with my life. Well, that life experience stuck in my mind. And then you fast forward years later when I'm in my basement and we get the call to go to a charitable event, and it turns out they're raising money for kids dealing with mental
Yeah.
health issues. I just felt compelled. It resonated with me very deeply.
Of course. Yeah.
And it turns out it resonated with all of our staff too. And over the years, we've gotten more involved with a lot more events,
Yeah.
different causes. There's so many of them, and the dollar amounts have gone up, and which doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you support as much as you can, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
of course.
But the direct messages that I get from my colleagues,
Yeah.
whenever we will contribute to the Children's Hospital or we contribute towards building a new NICU in the interior BC,
Yeah.
or we have sent Dale Carnegie to the high school in Elkford Valley,
Yeah.
I get direct messages from colleagues all the time telling me how much it moved them,
That's awesome.
how they had a child that spent time in the NICU, an infant,
Right.
or they have a teenager that's going through mental health issues, or on and
Yeah.
on and on and on, right? So
Yeah.
it comes like our purpose is providing an environment where people thrive while enhancing the community.
Yeah.
And it's not just words written on a page, it's actually a way that we were, how can we summarize why we're doing what we're doing?
Right.
And it's true.
Yeah.
It means the world to me, and it means a lot to my colleagues as well.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's interesting because one of the things that tweaked me when you mentioned it was, you cured yourself or you helped yourself is
In air quotes.
in air quotes.
Cured myself in air quotes.
In air quotes was, through breathwork and meditation. And I studied with a former Buddhist monk in meditation,
Amazing.
was trained, and have meditated for almost 15 years now. And I always say it saved my life, right? And, in more ways than one, it made me calmer. I mean, there's so many benefits. I wrote it down one day and there was, I think I came up with 36 things that meditation helped me with. So, if anyone's, any of our listeners are listening and you haven't tried meditation, as we both can talk to, it makes a huge difference. And
Big time.
and now, I mean, back 15 years ago, there weren't the apps there are now. Now there's Headspace and there's a bunch of apps you can use for guided meditation. So it's something we hear more and more. We do a lot of work with business owners and CEOs and senior executives, and more now when we ask them, do you have some kind of a mindfulness or meditation practice, more and more we're getting yes. And when I asked that question 15 years ago, maybe one hand out of 30, 40, 50 people would go up. So
Amazing.
I'm glad it's catching on and it's making a difference. So let's move from sort of that whole meditation piece. I want to talk, one of the things you said, you weren't that creative, so it had to be about giving back to the community is one of the things you said early on. But You know, as I read about your company, I mean, in 7 years, you've built a company with 350 employees, right? You've expanded into multiple different parts of the industry. Tell us about that. I mean, that takes creativity and courage, and so that just didn't happen overnight. You started in your basement. So walk us through that. Like, what were some of the challenges, and how did you get there?
It takes about 10 minutes. And we'll start in the basement because you set the stage there. So I started an electrical construction company in my basement, March 26, 2017.
Wow.
It was the old cliche, if that's what it is. I was a high performer, doing that in air quotes again, at my company. And as I started to gain experience and knowledge and become more capable and competent, I became a threat to my boss. And my boss began to make things very uncomfortable for me at work.
Right.
I went to Chapters Bookstore, bought 30 books, not at the same time, over the course of 8 months,
Yes.
studied the books on business, launched a company in my basement.
Wow.
In that first year, and we were in the industrial space, so we worked at a vodka distillery, a couple of NMAX power plants, and a coal mine. That's where we worked, working on industrial construction projects. And by the end of the first year in my basement, we had 25 employees, and we had a
Right.
successful first year. That company was started with a partner. It was a 50-50 partnership. The partnership didn't go well. And in the second year, we went through the turmoil of that partnership coming to an end. Almost went out of business. It was close.
Yeah.
And in 2019 now, that little electrical industrial construction company was operating out of a single bay on 114th Avenue. And we
At least you're not in your basement. At
not
this
in my
point.
basement anymore. Not in my basement anymore. It was a very tumultuous 2 years,
Yeah.
and it was a wild ride. And the partnership ended, and I kept on going with the company. Got into the single bay on 114th Ave and bounced off of the bottom line where you're going to go out of business, and went back up. And started with another gentleman, a really great guy. He's still one of my partners today.
Yeah.
Started a high voltage field service division for our company.
Okay.
So at the time we were Static Energy. That was
Right.
the little company I started in my basement. And we started the high voltage division April 2019. It could have been March. There's so many important dates
Yeah.
now. I get that one mixed up. We started the high voltage division. So we went from doing industrial electrical construction to adding high voltage field service,
Yeah.
just another service line for our business.
Right.
We attracted some talent that was experienced in designing and integrating a product called switchgear. It's a giant electrical switch that controls big power,
Okay.
protects humans and equipment. That's what it does, to keep it simple. We stayed in that little single bay, Static Energy, for another 2 years. And we doubled our revenue. We got up to 60 employees by the end of 2021. But the pivotal moment in my life and in the life of the company was right when we started that high voltage division. We attracted that talent
Right.
that knows the switchgear.
Yep.
He spent the next 2 years sending $100 million of proposals out in the market to build switchgear
Right.
and electrical buildings. And it's to all of our blue chip companies here in Western Canada. You know them all. And we were awarded an abysmal $1 million over the 2 years,
Yeah.
which is a very bad win rate for any of the sales professionals listening.
Absolutely, it is.
Any of the sales professionals, any of the business owners. But luckily for us, we were asking why. We're asking all of the customers, why aren't we getting awarded?
Right.
And they told us it was general consensus between all of them. It was the same 4 reasons. No one had ever heard of us. We didn't have ISO 9001, which is a quality registration. So anybody that you share with, that you're trying to manufacture a product and you tell them that you don't have a quality management system or ISO
Right.
9001 certification is going to laugh at you.
Right.
Didn't know that at the time. We didn't have a manufacturing space. We were in a single bay.
Right.
And I kept telling Trevor was the subject matter expert, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And we didn't have a team that could demonstrate we were capable of delivering on our promises.
Right.
So there was 4 major gaps, and it was the same feedback from every single customer that rejected us. And through another, divine intervention of the universe working in my favor, luckily, I kept studying business. So reading the books is how I got into business, and I kept reading them. And I'd come across the subject on mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it dawned on me that the fastest path to market for our little company to start manufacturing switchgear in high volume would be through doing an acquisition. So in February 2020, February 2020, I put together a strategic plan to complete an acquisition to fill those 4 gaps.
I'm going to stop you there just for a sec,
Yep.
because if I'm a listener here right now, I'm kind of going, okay, that's great, but where did he get the money? So did you have to raise capital? How did you walk us through that? Because I think that's fascinating.
To this day, I've never raised a dollar.
Wow.
To this day.
Good for you.
And the private equity groups and the strategics that have come through my facility over the last year, it's my favorite question. I can't wait till they ask it. When I finish my story, because we're at 200 million in revenue right now and 400 employees, and we've completed 3 acquisitions, and we're in the process of doing another one in Texas. I love it when they ask that question, because none of them believe me.
Yeah.
Because they're in the business of raising funds,
Yep.
Absolutely.
raising
That's
capital
what they do.
funds, and
Yep.
Yeah.
taking high net worth individuals from family offices funds and buying companies, where I've done all of this on bank debt,
Wow.
which takes a bit of just a little bit of confidence and courage, I guess.
And relationships with bankers.
I didn't have them at the time.
Yeah.
On that first acquisition, let me think, who did it? I won't mention any names. My first bank wouldn't do the deal, despite our success, which I'm doing in air quotes, because we had a very successful first year. Second
Right.
year was tumultuous, where we broke even. Third year was great. Fourth year was amazing.
Right.
For any listeners, I don't mind sharing numbers. They're all stale. In our 4th year business, we did 8.5 million in revenue and $1.5 million in EBITDA.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool
Yeah.
for a little
Pretty healthy
startup.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty neat for a little startup in my basement. And our bank, who's an amazing bank, if you can guess who they are, they're a great bank in Alberta. And they're incredible. They're awesome. But
Yeah.
for at the time, they weren't able to fund the deal.
Right.
So I had to go out and find new relationships. And that's actually a really cool story. This is how you can tell that the universe was working in my favor, and I'll share it. February 2020, started the plan to acquire. And what happened March 17th, 2020? COVID struck.
Yeah.
Yes.
COVID struck.
Yeah.
Before March 17th, I'd gone ahead and I'd formed a board. I created a board of advisors, which is part of the process. In a lot of business books, it tells you to form a board. I didn't do that in 2017 when I started at the time, because I didn't have the confidence. I didn't think anybody would answer the call. In 2020, I formed a board of advisors who are still with me today.
Yeah.
It's my chairman and director and legal counsel. Put the board together and initiated the process of acquiring, and March 17th, 2020 hit. It was COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I emailed my new formed board and said, I don't think anyone wants to hear from me. And they agreed.
Right.
So I put everything on pause for about a month. And then in April 2020, I decided I was going to go ahead and give it a shot, and I was going to start looking for an acquisition target. Believe it or not, one of my project managers, who still works with me today, he walked into my office and he saw the whiteboard, which was about 8 feet long and 3 feet tall, filled with notes, my strategic plan. And he asked me, what are you doing? And I told him, I said, Jody, I need to do an acquisition. I need to acquire a company that's going to fill these 4 gaps. And Jody laughed and said, you should acquire Sabre Instrument Services. He used to work there.
Yeah.
He was an ex-project manager for Sabre Instrument Services. And he laughed and he walked out. And I jumped on Google and I Googled Sabre Instrument Services Limited. And I looked at their website, and guess what they had? They had ISO 9001,
Which you needed.
which I needed. They had 30,000 square feet of manufacturing space. They've been around since I was born, 1985.
Yeah.
And they worked for about 160 clients that we've all heard of.
Yeah.
And quite a bit larger than you too, at the time probably.
At the time I thought so. COVID was pretty impactful on them
Right.
Right.
in a
Yeah.
negative way.
Yeah.
But back in the oil and gas days, from 2000 to 2014 in Alberta, they were a major player.
Right.
You went to Sabre Instrument Services for all your instrumentation integration products and electrical panels.
Mm-hmm.
So Sabre Instrument Services Limited was the target. I jumped on LinkedIn and I searched Sabre Instrument Services Limited, and the owner's name came up. A gentleman by the name of Keith McLennan. Sorry, Keith, if you hear that. And I messaged him on LinkedIn and I said, what I just told you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Keith, Static Energy, March 26, 2017, 4 gaps. I think your company can fill my gaps. I'd like to do a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. And he responded the next day and said, let's talk.
Wow.
And the next day, I was on a Zoom meeting. We were all doing Zoom at the time, at
Yeah.
the beginning of COVID, right?
Yeah.
I was on a Zoom call with Keith and Tony, the 2 owners of Sabre Instrument Services Limited, and I said the exact same thing to them again. Static Energy, 4 gaps, you guys can fill them, let's do a deal. I'm summarizing now, but
Yeah.
same pitch. And we made a deal on the phone, on the Zoom call.
Wow.
We made an agreement that I was going to acquire their company. And it took us until April 14th, 2021
Right.
to close the transaction.
Right.
Yeah.
I had my board. I didn't have the bank that I was using at the time. They wouldn't fund the deal. It was, this is serendipitous. This is super cool. It was a very difficult deal to get funded. Very difficult. And there was one bank, one gentleman that called me and said, I can see exactly what you're trying to do here. I've consolidated the financials. I've read your thesis. I can see it. I'll fund the deal. And long story short, we closed that deal April 14th, 2021. He funded it on behalf of his bank, another big bank, and he retired right after.
Wow.
He was a gentleman that had been in business. He'd been in the business for 40 years,
Yeah.
and I was his last deal. He
Amazing.
retired right after that deal. I should actually call him and take him out for a coffee.
Maybe you retired because of the deal. No,
Maybe.
just kidding.
Maybe he got in trouble for doing it. I don't know. But we did that deal, and the company quadrupled. We went from 8 million to 32 million that year. 30 million
Yeah.
Right.
in revenue that year.
Yeah.
So it worked. The thesis worked.
Yeah.
And we spent the next 16 months integrating the 2 companies together. Static Energy and Sabre Instrument Services amalgamated and became the Sabre Limited that we know today.
Right.
And it just took off. And
Wow.
it's experiencing a ton of success
Yeah.
in our space. We're selling a lot of switchgear and electrical integrated product. We're exporting about $100 million of product down to the United States.
Wow.
From oh no, that's between Sabre and Boundary. I'm skipping steps now.
Yeah.
Um,
So
It's
not bad for a kid with anxiety and
Yeah.
wasn't even sure he could be an electrician,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
When you think about it. Now,
Absolutely.
I'm guessing, because you didn't say it, but if I'm reading between the lines, I'm guessing you got a yes from one bank. How many no's did you get in that process?
every other bank that you can think of in Western Canada.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the important learning here, right?
Yep.
Is
Yeah.
you had to go through a lot of no's and keep going to get to the yes,
Absolutely.
right? Is that persistence and that failure is not an option, right?
Absolutely.
You went in with that mindset. So, great story. Love that story.
Absolutely. I would feel terrible if I didn't share one very important note. Is I had a colleague that was in, I don't know what he's doing now. He's in the space. His name's Toby Calks, and he worked as an advisor, helping fund deals.
Right.
So it wasn't me that was running around knocking on doors. I found a really great person.
You had an expert.
Yeah.
Exactly. I had the expert.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping me get that sentence out of my mouth. I had the expert,
Yeah.
and he was the one that made introductions to all of them, took the thesis and the consolidated financials, got us the introduction to Amir to do his last deal. So yeah, that's an important part.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? To this day, that lesson's been reinforced just about every month of my career. Go to the experts.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Yeah.
Go find advisors. They're out there and they're ready to help you. Back in 2017, when I never had the confidence to form a board of advisors because I didn't think that they would take the call and I didn't think they would be interested in helping a punk, it turns out that there's actually a lot of really brilliant people there that are more than willing to help any aspiring entrepreneur or any aspiring career person as well.
Yeah.
Everyone's ready to take that call.
Yeah.
Well, and nobody gets there alone. They didn't get where they got alone as well. They had somebody help them along the way.
100%.
So,
Well, and I think that's something that I think you can say you learned early on, right? Like you left the company you were with, you said, because your boss saw you as a threat, right? The more you learned, he saw you as a threat. And so for you to understand that people that know more than you are not threats, they're assets to your company, right?
Big
That
time.
speaks a lot to the way that you approach, right, people and your business and your culture and all that kind of thing. So
Big time.
yeah, I think that's a big learning that probably has obviously helped you for the better, right? Helped you
100%.
succeed.
100%.
Yeah.
We've got a long list of products and services now, and I won't beat myself up too much. I can still, speak to the electrical construction side of things and a little bit of the field service side, but when you look at switchgear, data centers, transformers, I don't have a clue what's going on there,
Right,
right?
yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
the experts that are doing that. They're
Yeah.
all really great people.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
fantastic.
you've got the expertise that you've surrounded yourself with.
Big time.
Yeah. One of the things I am curious, if this is something that you struggled with as you were moving forward, is imposter syndrome. So you went from, somebody who didn't have confidence that you were capable of, dealing with education and, being successful. And I know that you talked about the anxiety and panic attacks, but, was imposter syndrome something that, has ever kicked in for you throughout that journey that you've been on? And, quite a fast trajectory of moving up quickly. And yeah, I'm curious to know if that's something that's come up for you.
Well,
Well, and while you're thinking, I can also share that, I chair a couple of CEO forums here in Calgary, and I did ask that question of one of my groups about a year ago, I guess it was, and because it came up as one of the questions in the group one day, and one of the leaders was saying, he was struggling with a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Like, do I really know how to get this company there? And so I actually said to the group, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome. And 100% of the people raised their hand, including me, because I've been through it as well through my corporate journey. And so, it's something that every leader and every business owner probably deals with sometime in their career in terms of, do I really know how to get this there? Am I really going to make it? Can I really get through this challenge? So,
big time. And
great question to you.
It is a great question. And I was trying to put my finger on when did it change from being imposter syndrome to simply just fear of failure
Right.
for me?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you when imposter syndrome was big for me. When I was operating an industrial construction company in my basement. Okay? You want to talk about imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Try sending a proposal letter to Shell. For
From your basement.
for $1 million construction project.
Yeah.
And when you push send, then you step back from your desk and you realize you're standing on an old carpet from 1980 in a dimly lit basement
Yeah.
on makeshift furniture,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
imposter syndrome was big,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was really trying to think about your question and try to think, well, what about today? And that's why I had such a hard time answering, because I was trying to pinpoint when did that go away, because when you asked me the question, I realized, holy crap, I stopped feeling like an imposter at some point.
Right.
And what I think has happened, because don't get me wrong, fear of failure comes up for all of us.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
You know, I shouldn't say anybody that thinks that that's not true is wrong, because, you know, at the end of the day, what do I know, right?
Fair.
But so I still go through fear of failure, but I have to find the courage to overcome that. And I've got some cool tricks for that, like cold plunging in 45-degree Fahrenheit water for 5 minutes every day,
Wow.
every morning. If you can do that, you can do anything. But yeah, the imposter syndrome was there in my basement. It was there on 114th Avenue. It was also there for that first acquisition and even
Yeah.
the second acquisition.
Right.
Even the second acquisition, I was nervous because when you're acquiring a company, you don't get to hide behind closed doors and wait till the lawyers are done. Guess what happens? You're selling the whole time. You're selling to the bank that's going to fund it. You're selling to your team the importance of doing this deal.
Yep.
You're selling to the seller
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
the importance of them selling their company to you. Not
Yeah.
only can you pay them the money, but you're not going to run the company into the ground.
Yeah.
You're selling all the time. So imposter syndrome kicked in when I'm in Kamloops driving to the office at 6:30 at night in December 2022,
Yeah.
and you're driving to go meet the owners in person for the first time, and they've got the general manager and the future president
Yeah.
there waiting to meet you,
Right.
and you're supposed to walk in the door and shake hands with them and you know, show them that you don't lack prowess
Right.
and be confident and comfortable, and imposter syndrome kicks in.
Yeah.
And I remember driving over there and thinking, what am I doing? How have I gotten myself into this mess? I had a great colleague with me, still with me today, named Reg Young. He's my CFO, and he was a great support. But yeah, imposter syndrome was there.
Yeah.
And I had to think about it because I was like, oh my goodness, that feeling went away. And on the most recent deal that we did, the Boundary Electric deal, the acquisition that we did just this last year, July 22nd, 2024, we closed it. There was no imposter syndrome. There was absolute confidence and certainty
Yeah.
that this was the right thing to do. It took us 7 months to do it.
Yeah.
There was a few times along the way where fear of failure came up.
Right.
Of course.
Not
Yeah.
not imposter syndrome like, oh my goodness, I'm not the right person for this and I'm going to screw this up. Fear of failure,
Yeah.
I'm going to screw this up, regardless of whether I think I'm the right person or not. That kicked in a few times, but we got the deal done. But I didn't feel like an imposter, and I don't feel like an imposter today. We're going to go on to do some really great things.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool question, and that was a cool opportunity to reflect on that, because imposter syndrome was very real, and I haven't felt it in the last year.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
for asking.
Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing that.
Awesome.
Well, and I think it's important for everyone to know that imposter syndrome comes up for everybody. Right? I
Absolutely.
think that when you feel that, you think, "Wow, I'm not the person," but everybody feels that way. You know, at some point to get them where they are, and maybe even, you know, in a new situation, right? Maybe acquisitions are not the thing that make you feel like an imposter anymore because you might have gone through a number of them, but that imposter syndrome could come up at any time, I think, for anybody.
Do you know what, Tia? It's so funny that you just said that. That was another really great point, because I'm going through something really big right now, and it is going to change the trajectory again. And I will no longer be in my comfort zone, and imposter syndrome has come up a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
it
interesting.
just doesn't, you know, every
It
time we
doesn't go
stretch
away.
ourselves, it comes back, right?
Yep.
So good learning for our audience,
Yeah.
right? For our
Yep.
listeners.
Yeah.
So, you know, I want to go.
And I can't tell you what it is. It's coming up.
It's
That's
okay.
awesome.
We'll hear about
That's
it, I'm sure, at
exciting.
some
For
point.
sure.
So maybe we'll have you back. You know, one of the things I want to go back to, and we, you know, it's kind of one of our sort of key questions that we like to ask is, what do you wish someone would have told you when you started your journey? Like, let's help somebody who's on the beginning of their journey. What do you wish somebody would have told you when you started?
Jeez, do I have to pick one?
No.
Oh, you can give us a couple,
Yeah.
absolutely, or 10. Now we don't have that much time, but
What do I wish someone told me when I first started? And if only I would have listened.
Yes, there's a difference between hearing it and
Right.
listening.
Yeah, I've been given some great advice over the years, and there's been time. I'm coachable. I've been told that's some feedback I've gotten. I'm very coachable, I'm like, oh, that's a good thing. And still, there's been things that have been said to me, and it just hasn't clicked until after something's
Well, you
gone
might not
wrong.
have been ready to hear it,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What do I wish someone told me? You know what? Try harder. Set goals. And sitting down on January 1st and really setting goals, big ones, and then really putting together the plan to hammer those goals every single day, Saturday, Sunday, holidays, and to keep track of the months and the quarters.
Right.
I had such a crazy experience this year, January.
Right.
I've experienced some success. The company's, doing well. And a guy looked at me, a very successful man looked at me and said, "You should have done 5 times more." He said that to me. You should have done 5 times more. And I wasn't going to argue with him. I looked at him and I said, "I know." And he said, "Yeah, you should have done 5 times more." He was almost disappointed. No, he was disappointed. And I sat down January 1st of this year, and I decided I was going to write goals for the first time. I've never done that exercise. And guess what I did? I jumped on Google and I Googled how to write goals for a year. And you've all done this. 50 links come up. And I happened to click on the right one. And I got this Excel spreadsheet, and it was, this is how you write goals. First, start with a year in review. Well, how do you do that? Let's take an Excel spreadsheet and let's put in January through December. And I want you to go to January, and I want you to write all your milestones, all your achievements, and all your memories, the big ones for the month.
Right.
So I did January, and I did February, and I did March. And by the time I got to March, I started laughing, and I realized, wow, you can do more. You can do so much more. Because look, there was some great things in January. We had the process of acquiring Boundary Electric going, but I sat in my office in February and March waiting for April to come. And look, we accomplished some things in April.
Right.
And May and June and oh, look, we closed the deal with Boundary in July. And I got this great award with Business in Calgary, I think in September. And I've got all these wonderful, now this was a goal of mine to become a better dad. I've got all these wonderful memories in the slots too for my
Yeah.
kids. Incredible. But when I was done, what I was looking at was what some people would consider to be a successful year. And what I'd realized was how much time I'd wasted in that year.
Right.
I could have done more.
Right.
So it was great advice.
It was great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great advice. And, as an example, I won't tell you what my goals were. January 1st, I wrote those goals. I smashed all 3 goals before the end of January.
Wow.
All 3. And those were supposed to take me all year.
All year.
Right.
Right.
And I've been so busy at work that I haven't had a chance to sit down and do the process again. But I should. I should sit down and I should do the process for my goals for the year.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying isn't for everybody. Okay, but entrepreneur, career-oriented person,
Yeah.
right? If I had known when did I start? 8 years ago, March 26, 8 years ago. If I had known that,
Right.
I think I'd be so much further ahead than I am today. But I wouldn't have listened to that
Fair.
because I wasn't ready to hear it.
Yeah. Fair.
Because 8 years ago, if you had told me we'd be doing, $200 million in revenue, and we have a really good opportunity to double that again this year,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have believed you about that either.
Right.
I wouldn't have believed that either.
Yeah.
I would have, because at the time we'd done 2 million in our first year, and at the end of the year, I thought to myself, "Wow, if I can double that, I'll be set." Right? That's all I need to do.
Yeah.
And everybody's done this.
Right.
This is the entrepreneur's journey. Then you double it that next year with 0 profit because we went through some turmoil. We still doubled the revenue, but 0 profit. it's like, okay, if I can just do that revenue again, but be profitable, I'm set. Well, the next year you grow another 50%, and okay, if I can double this, then I'll be set. It never ends.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you had told me 8 years ago that I'd be where I am today, I would have cried, I'm sure,
Or laughed at
or
us.
laughed.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have been ready to hear that advice, because I had just spent, the last year, my evenings and weekends studying business out of books from Chapters Bookstore.
Yeah.
And I took 2 courses online on Udemy. The one course where I learned how to do valuations and projections was a $15 course. That's where I learned how to do business modeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you're leading us into, because we're sort of wrapping up our time here, but you're leading Tia into, another one of our signature questions, which, when you've talked about books and courses, and I mean, we can tell that you love continuous learning, and, the business that we're in at Sonic Coaching, I mean, obviously we have to believe in that, right? Even for ourselves, because we always want to bring the most new and cutting edge information to our clients. So Tia's got, one final sort of question that we love to ask everybody that we interview.
Yeah. So personal, professional development, one and the same, right? But what has been your favorite book or podcast or, self-development tool? What's made a big impact for you that you would recommend to somebody else?
Well, the easy one is the podcast one. I'll do that first. The Diary of a CEO.
Right.
it's great.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's blown up. And he's got so many interesting people on there that are all running the most successful billion-dollar companies, and when you listen to the podcast, you hear about all the struggles,
Yeah.
and you hear about all the pain and suffering and all the triumph.
Yeah.
And you get to see, oh wow, these are all just people too. They're not superheroes. They're just like us,
Yeah.
and they go through the exact same things.
Yeah.
Books. The book I read, I got asked this question just the other day. And if I had to pick one book from my bookshelf, I'd have to say it's the book that really changed my life. I had just finished studying business, and I still never had the confidence to launch. I was still being held back by something. I never had the faith, and I never had the courage. And I was standing at a Chapters bookstore, my favorite place,
Yeah.
speaking to a colleague, and I was in a bad place. I was skipping out from work.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be at the office. There I am standing at Chapters, talking to him on
Playing
the phone.
hooky.
Yeah, complaining to him about stuff, about life.
Right.
And there it was in the entrepreneurship section. It was a book called Rock Bottom to Rock Star by Ryan Blair. And I grabbed it, and this isn't, word for word. It's been a long time since I've read it. It's on my shelf. And basically an 18-year-old punk that went through juvenile detention, and he
Right.
got caught up in gangs, and he had no father figure. And the father figure comes into his life at 18, who's a businessman, and all of a sudden he has mentorship in his life.
Right.
Right.
And so that was a change for him. That was the major shift in his life. But the cool part is this gang banger that was in and out of juvenile detention with no future became the CEO of a billion-dollar company.
Uh-huh.
And when you read his book, Rock Bottom to Rockstar, you get to read it wasn't easy. He went through a lot of struggles. I think he went through a bankruptcy. I know he went through he almost went through an exit where he got handed a piece of paper that said 0 on it, and he showed them. He went through some
Wow.
stuff,
Yeah.
and he made it. And when I read that book, I thought to myself, wow, if this person can do this, I'm going to give it a shot.
Right.
Because he talked about how, beautiful it was. I took it as beautiful. I don't think he used that word, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. I don't want to look back and regret not trying.
Right.
That's the book. In terms of personal development, now we're talking about like health things.
Anything that you feel has helped you?
The breathwork and meditation that I did with Max Strom in Vancouver on November 30th, 2018 is the reason why I've never suffered from a panic attack ever since.
Wow.
I have, I've got genetic testing done, and I've got custom built vitamins based on my genetics, because, it turns out, there's so many causes. of anxiety.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hammer all of them. And it turns out that, you know, there's certain minerals you can be deficient in.
Right.
And the side effects are fear of failure, restless sleep, and another one. And I read that on the genetic report test results, and I went, "Wow, you're kidding me! Fear of failure and restless sleep because I'm deficient in this mineral."
You know, everybody's listening right now, Rich, is thinking, I got to go buy more vitamins, right?
You know, look into it. The breathwork, meditation, Ziva meditation,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, and you sit there and you do a mantra in your head for 15 minutes, and then you spend another couple minutes picturing a better world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our paint, I call it, so we spend, I've said this once, it was so poetic. You spend the first half of the meditation healing from a traumatic past, and the last half painting a beautiful future.
Right.
I think I said it better than that in the past. I'll have to remember it and call you and tell you. And there's the Ziva meditation. What I've done, and I'll share this with you guys, the single greatest thing that I've done in the last year
Mm-hmm.
was buying the cold tub, sticking it outside, and my very first cold plunge, it sat in my backyard for 3 weeks, and my first cold plunge was January 1st this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, it was -20.
Yeah.
It's cold out, yeah.
And I had to use the book Atomic Habits
Yeah.
Right.
to get myself into it.
Great book.
Atomic Habits got me into it.
Yeah.
Because it's January 1st, and I'm standing in my kitchen, and I'm going, Kate, you said you were going to do it. Go do the plunge. And I thought, no, I'll do it later. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's that thing, it's happening to you. And I thought Atomic Habits. I said, you know what, go downstairs and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked downstairs, I looked at it. I was like, well, you're standing here now, open the door.
Right.
So I opened my door, and then I walked out to it. It's like, Kay, open the lid. I opened the lid, and I said, Kay, just get in and get out. I got into the cold tub, and I went, now you're standing in it, put your arms in it. Lean down, put my arms in it. Kay, why don't you just go ahead and fall down into it? And I fell down into it, and I lasted like 30 seconds.
Right.
And then came flying out of it and ran inside, and I went into stage 1 hypothermia. And the next day I did 45 seconds.
Right.
And the next day I
Yes.
did 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And within days I was up to 5 minutes. And I've been doing 5 minutes every day
Yeah.
in a cold plunge, 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Traveling used to be an excuse not to doing it. But now when I'm at the hotel, I take 2 trips to the ice machine, and I fill up my bathtub in the hotel with ice.
Yeah.
And I'll lay in a bathtub of ice. So that's not an excuse anymore. My point
Mm-hmm.
is the last 6 weeks of my life have been incredibly high impact, stressful. And I'm doing the air quotes, no one can see it. But I'm absolutely amazed at how I've been able to just do it. And what I've chalked it up to is I don't think there's anything in the world worse than rolling out of bed at 5 in the morning and going and forcing yourself to lay in 45 degree Fahrenheit water for 5 minutes
Yeah.
Yeah.
while it's -25
Yeah.
degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than that.
Right.
And the fascinating thing about us humans is to this day, I'm still having to apply the atomic habit principle
Right.
to get myself into it.
Yeah.
Even though I know the benefits, my energy's gone through the roof.
Right.
My clarity is just there. I feel like my intelligence has gone up, and stress does not impact me the same way that it used to. And I attribute it 100% to the cold plunging.
You know, you're going to have a lineup now at your cold plunge pool after everybody listens to this.
And then they'll feel the temperature and they'll go, nah.
And they'll say, nah, that was a bad idea. I'm going home like, under my shower, right?
I'll tell you this, because I know then you've got to go. You're going to kick me out. One morning it malfunctioned. It's a brand new tub. I walked downstairs. This was late January, a couple weeks ago. It was cold. It was -28. And I go to turn it on because I'm standing inside, and I go to turn the jets on, and I see the temperature's 37 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's a warning saying freeze prevention, freeze prevention. So that means that the heaters aren't kicking in,
Right.
and the jets are just keeping the water moving so it doesn't freeze. And I looked at it and I went, well, I can't do that. Like, no, something's wrong. I can't get in this. This is 37, not 45. And I forced myself to still get in.
I was going to say you did it. Yeah, absolutely.
I still did it.
Yeah.
And that was actually a very proud achievement of mine,
Yeah.
because it would have been so much easier just to go upstairs and have a cup of coffee and call the repairman.
Yeah.
The tub's fine now. The heaters work again. It's 45 degrees Fahrenheit every day. But that was one of the best things I think I've done in the last, well, geez, let's just call it the first 2 months of this year.
Well,
Yeah.
a long way to go.
And we're sitting here with Rich, and I can tell you there's no icicles coming off his hair or anything, so he's fine too. So, well, awesome. You know, Rich, there's so many nuggets here today, right? Whether it's about the meditation or whether it's about having an advisory board, like I could go on and on with all the nuggets that you've given our listeners. So,
Yeah.
first of all, thank you for sharing your time with us and sharing some of your learnings and some of the secrets to your success, quite frankly. And so, you know, we always appreciate when business leaders and business owners like yourself come out and speak with us, because if somebody can take a couple of those nuggets and it saves them some pain or prevents a bankruptcy, I mean, that's just so helpful. So,
Awesome.
you know, you've been listening to the Business in Calgary Magazine podcast powered by Sonic Coaching Partners. And we'll be back here again in a couple of weeks with another business owner or business leader here in Calgary to share some of their wisdom. Thanks, everyone.